Welcome to Beyond Tech, where innovation meets insight.
We're your hosts, Jackie Slaght and Jennifer Palumbo. We bring curiosity, clarity, and a passion for technology-driven storytelling to every conversation.
I'm Jennifer Palumbo, Vice President of Marketing at eTech Group. I've spent most of my career in marketing and industrial automation, and through that time, I've developed a deep appreciation for the role that technology and engineering play in pushing industries forward through innovation. In marketing, my goal is to connect people, ideas, and innovation through storytelling. And that's exactly what I hope to do in this podcast.
And I'm Jackie Slatt, Director of Marketing and Communications at eTech Group. I've spent most of my career in B2B marketing, often in industries that I didn't study, but grew to love by diving into the details. I'm passionate about making complex technologies easier to understand and taking what can feel overwhelming and helping it all click. We're excited to host these conversations, learn alongside our listeners, and make these topics more understandable, relatable, and engaging for everyone tuning in. So, Jen, why are we getting into the podcast space?
Because they're cool.
No argument here.
I listen to a lot of podcasts. I think a lot of our coworkers, a lot of people listen to podcasts. That's why there's so many of them now. But for eTech Group, we're always looking to do something new and something different especially with our content. And when we have had conversations with our SMEs, technical folks, our engineers, we've noticed just on Teams meetings how comfortable they are with sharing their perspective or their opinion on a particular topic that they know a lot about. So this seemed like a natural channel for us to explore and see, is this a better way, or maybe in some cases just a different way to share our technical expertise and talk about things that our people really care about. So we're still going to do blog posts, we're still going to do case studies, we're still going to have written content, but we just thought this could be a really fun thing to explore so that our audience, pretty much anybody in the industrial space and in the manufacturing space would benefit from these conversations.
Yeah, and there was no better way for us to launch our podcast than by having eTech Group CEO Matt Wise kick things off with us.
Matt has been with eTech Group since November 2020, but he has over 2 decades of executive leadership experience. His diverse background spans advanced manufacturing, software, and digital marketing. Under Matt's leadership, eTech Group has expanded its footprint globally, growing the company to over 700 professionals and over 30 locations around the world, delivering automation solutions to industries like life sciences, food and beverage, mission critical, and metals.
During our conversation, Matt also talked about how he helped lead the integration of the 4 legacy brands that originally made up eTech Group, and how we have since expanded the company through 3 acquisitions and organic growth.
Yeah, Matt's got a lot of business experience, and it was interesting to hear him share his perspective there. But he also talks about things like the system integrator industry and maybe how the system integrator isn't really living up to its potential for clients. And then he shares his perspective on tariffs and how they're affecting businesses today and discussions that we're having with clients and how SIs like eTech Group can help.
Yeah, and we also threw him a few softball questions and just some fun topics to kind of round out the conversation. But I think you guys will really enjoy it.
Yeah, he's the boss. We didn't want to make things too hard for him.
Yeah, we'd take a little easy.
Yeah, but I agree. I think this was a fun conversation to kick off our very first podcast.
Yeah. So I hope you guys enjoy.
Yes, enjoy.
Welcome, Matt. Thanks for being with us today. So I think we should start off by saying why we wanted to launch a podcast and get into this space.
Yeah, Jackie, as we thought about what we could do in the industry and how we could contribute back, we thought a podcast would be a great format. If you think about all the different clients we see, all the different executions with over 600 engineers, thousands of projects, there's got to be some great stuff that we can talk about to bring back to the community and to engineers to help out not only our clients, but also some of our partners and vendors in the field too.
That's great. I'm excited to get into this too. It's a new adventure and see what we can create.
Sounds good.
So can you share a little bit about how eTech Group came to be one of the largest system integration companies in the country?
Yes, great story about a number of different companies, a lot of them around for a long time, that came together as eTechnologies. So the namesake eTechnologies was actually a company formed 30 years ago, right outside of Cincinnati, focusing on CPG, food and bev. And then over the last 5 or 6 years, we have acquired 7 different companies that all brought different skill sets to us, different industries. And what we did was put all of those together, not trying to just get everybody on one platform, but to take a piece of the best of what each of them did and bring them all together. So now when we go out to a client, we're not just bringing the intel of a CPG player or a life sciences player. We're literally bringing the experience of thousands of different client executions together and the best practices of 30 years across 7 different companies together for our clients. So super exciting concept to execute on. And it's been going wonderful. We continue to grow not only through acquisitions, but we also just grow organically because the model is working out really well.
Matt, some people feel that the system integration space is broken, and maybe letting manufacturing companies down. Do you share that opinion? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say it's broken. I say it's not living up to its potential. If you think about the history of system integrators, traditionally they have been brought in at the end of a sales cycle. So a client decides or a manufacturer decides to upgrade a piece of a line. They choose their piece of equipment, they choose their software platform, then they call the system integrator to integrate it. And usually they have different system integrators at each individual facility. So there's no strategy being applied, no long-term or best practices being applied across different facilities. So that's what we're trying to do, is change that game to be a much greater strategic partner for our clients by being able to serve multiple different locations, geographic locations, as well as a broader set of services. So for instance, I could either integrate one piece of equipment or on a line, or I can sit down with my partner and say, I have seen this type of integration and these exercises work at 10 of your other facilities, and I've seen these work in other industries. Let's talk about what we want to do with your line over the next 12, 36 months to advance your automation. That's where we want to go, John. So not so much broken, but just not living up to the potential of what all these great system integrators can do. And it's because they're so small and they're geographically bound, so they can't service all the clients.
Do you think that the client has caught up to that, though, the manufacturing companies? What would you say to a manufacturing company that still feels like, no, it's really better for me to work, with multiple system integrators and have multiple bids coming in for any type of project?
The challenge we have is exactly what you articulated. Is there's been a way of doing business. It's exactly that: multiple system integrators at one spot. The way we generally work around that, but work with our clients on a broader scale is to ask, like, what's your pain point? Are you learning what's happening at other facilities? Do you feel like your level of controls engineering advances every year and gets superior? And for most clients, they would say, no, it's just a challenge or it's just a necessary evil. So that's the ones that don't understand this new dynamic and this new model. However, I can tell you right now, there are numerous of our clients who have come to us and articulated the problem, that they get no strategic direction from their system integrators and what they really need is a partner. So we know the pain is out there. We know some of our manufacturing partners realize that and realize a potential solution, which is partnering with someone like an eTech to become, what we call a main automation partner, someone that you have a long-standing relationship with and set standards for you. But for those other players, we need to work with them and help them see the vision of how this could be better.
Makes sense.
I have something I'd like to add and see if it resonates with the same storyline. One of the other things that we keep seeing in the industry and people talking about, it's a big buzzword, is IT/OT convergence. Is that also playing a factor in clients needing more of a strategic partner with system integrators?
It is, Jackie. We started out talking about the traditional role of a system integrator being brought in to solve a discrete or one specific problem. As we see IT/OT convergence and we see a desire to have a completely connected shop floor, a digitized version of that shop floor, you can't do that one skid or one machine at a time. You can't have islands of automation. You need a partner to stitch it all together. And that's not easy. People see that as a grand division, but it takes a lot of work to get there. And it's not something you can do overnight. It's usually multiple years. That's exactly what we can help them do is reach that vision of, okay, today, 40% of my facility is network and connected. I'm trying to get to 80% by the end of next year, and then 100% by the year after that. And then I want X amount of digital visualization, and I want to start optimizing that process in a digital layer. To do that, you need someone who's really deep into the OT layer, which is exactly what we're trying to do. And I'll add one more point to that. You know, the complexity that's out there, it's hard to use point solutions. If one system integrator is doing your BI, one system integrator is doing your network, one system integrator is doing your machine control, now you've got lots of different hands in the pot. What you want is all of that stitched together. And quite frankly, that's been hard for a lot of system integrators over the years because they don't have a deep enough bench or a broad enough bench to do that. So that's another value we're trying to bring to our clients.
Speaking of complexity, there's complexity like you were just talking about within the facility, but there's certainly a lot of complexity happening outside and in our current economic climate, referring to tariffs, of course. Seems like there's just regular discussions pretty much daily. Can you talk a little bit about what that impact is looking like in the manufacturing space?
Yes, I won't comment on the political side of whether tariffs are a good idea or a bad idea, but I will comment on uncertainty. So uncertainty is just bad for business, period. There is no company who wakes up in the morning and says, what I really want is a big bowl of uncertainty today. What they want to be able to do is plan. Are tariffs going to be 3%? Great. I can plan around that. I can plan who my suppliers are going to be, et cetera. So unfortunately, the last 6 months has been terrible because of uncertainty. Our clients have a hard time planning. What we try to do is stay focused on, regardless of tariffs, these are things that are going to help you as a US or a North America-based manufacturer. Now, we also do clients abroad in other countries, but just talking about North America for a moment, we can lay out a pattern that says, these are the things that are important to you, regardless of where those tariffs go. So luckily enough for us, knock on wood, so far for our business, this hasn't challenged it. For our clients and their core efforts, it's not a challenge. But all of those folks who want to make really big investments, bold investments, it's really hard to do because you don't know what the tariff situation is going to be. You don't know if you're going to be able to get equipment in. You don't know what you're going to be able to sell your products at. And that makes them hesitant for large capital project investment. So all we can hope is that the tariff uncertainty will stop as soon as humanly possible, and we can get back to building the businesses.
Can you talk a little bit about how we can help our clients deal with that ourselves?
Yeah, circling back to what's important to manufacturers, I think in a tariff heavy or tariff modest environment, controlling your supply chain and being resilient from an automation perspective is tremendously important, especially here in North America. We have a labor shortage. Everyone talks about bringing manufacturing jobs back to America. We do not have the personnel to do that. So if America is going to expand their manufacturing, we have got to get vastly more efficient. And the best way to do that is through automation. So that is one of the things that's insulated automation to a degree from the tariff challenges, is regardless of how they pan out, these companies need certain elements of automation. So that's what we try to guide our clients on, is let's take a look at your infrastructure. Let's talk about what needs to be remediated, what's a danger in your ability to produce, then what's the best low-hanging fruit to improve your production, and lay a plan like that, knowing that I'm doing good construction work underneath, regardless of what the external environment is.
Right. So rather than trying to continuously anticipate and respond to what changes so often, it's better to just work with a partner on a long-term plan and just trying to be executing on that plan.
You got it.
So one of the things you touched on is bringing manufacturing back to the United States and not having the labor force to support that. I think that ties into another term that we're hearing a lot of, companies going to lights out manufacturing facilities, meaning they're fully automated with no human intervention in the manufacturing process. Is that a realistic goal for many facilities right now?
I think in the long term, yes, lights out manufacturing is something that's going to happen. And I will just draw an analogy to farming. The vast majority of America used to work in farming, and only 2% of the population works there. If you've ever seen a tractor out, I went to college out in Iowa, and if you've ever seen a tractor in Iowa, they're satellite controlled. Some of them are actually robotically controlled. There's no human in them. Others have one human but covering enormous amounts of field and doing all of the processing in the field. We see the same thing happen in manufacturing. The reality is the number of people working in the field of manufacturing will go down because we will automate more and more of it. Now, what will go up are the people who control that automation. Firms like ours will grow exponentially so that we can support these highly automated facilities. Do I see fully autonomous facilities in the near future? No. If you look at most of the brownfield sites in the United States, meaning sites that are already up in manufacturing, they're not even networked together. Forget about being able to operate in the lights out capacity. I mean, much of the equipment in there might be from the 1960s, 1970s. So we have a long way to go to connecting all that equipment and allowing it to operate autonomously. However, every year we'll get closer to that, and every year will become more and more or closer to autonomous and with less and less people in the facilities. So it's an exciting path to be on, and I know some people are worried about this. Our belief is this is all part of a natural progression towards an information society in which people are working on information as opposed to manual labor. And I think that's good. It should be more mentally stimulating for most of our folks. We'll need to cross-train some team members, which we do actively, but we think that's a great move for the U.S. economy.
How would you recommend a client start this journey towards becoming more fully automated?
You want to be fully automated or go on that path, we would recommend you find a partner like us who can be a main automation partner for you. Someone who can sit at the table and look at the entire operation of your facility. So if you think about the breadth of what we do, we can harden a facility, we can network all of the equipment, then we can control how that equipment works and collect data off that can go into a data historian and a BI tool that you can use to apply AI to. I think I used a lot of acronyms in there, but the point is it's the end-to-end digital control of your facility. That's what you need. You need that partner who can do all of that so that you can sit down and have a reasonable conversation around what should I network next? How do I protect that? How does it collect data for me? Because this idea that you can automate one thing at a time just won't get you to the promised land of a fully automated facility. So think of it as an orchestra. You need all of the pieces to act in concert. When you go to an orchestra, are there 5 leaders out there? No, there's not one for the string section, one for the horn section, one for percussions. There's one conductor standing at the front coordinating all the activity. That is exactly what a main automation partner can help you do. So that's the first thing you need to do. And then you need to leverage that partner to help you create best practices and standards that you can use in all of your facilities so that you can share those practices between the two or all of your different locations, and that you can gain insights potentially from outside of your industry. I mentioned at the outset what industries we are in. We're in CPG, food and bev, and mission critical, and life sciences. All of those have overlapping executions where we can take from a great idea that we learned creating cancer drugs and talk about how do we create food. Why? Because we're using similar processes back and forth, and vice versa. There's just a tremendous amount of knowledge that is gained in different facilities that by working with a good strategic partner, they can bring to the table for you. That's how we leapfrog forward in advancement. And that's what, I would recommend to any vendor who's waking up in the morning and saying, all right, my vision is to continue to automate. I wonder how I do that. You don't have to sit in a vacuum to do that. Jen brought up earlier how complex society is getting, or how complex manufacturing is getting. Every month, every quarter, it gets more and more complex. It is unrealistic to believe that someone who's working in one facility for 10 years can have the purview over thousands of different executions and hundreds of different facilities. It's just impossible for them to know all of those things. Whereas a company like us, that's exactly what we do. We gather all that information. So the next client we walk into, we can stand on the back of all the other work we've done and bring these great insights into their clients. So that's what I would recommend any vendor do, is find a partner like an eTech group.
Awesome.
I'm going to throw you a curveball.
Oh,
It's not a list on here, but I don't know, because you might be able, this is something I feel like some people listening would want to know about. So you're talking about going anywhere from, automation projects to fully automated facilities. All of that sounds like cha-ching, right? It's going to cost money. And you are an executive. You've been an executive for a long time. What advice would you give to somebody in an operations role or a head of engineering role that knows that automation needs to happen in their facility? How do they get that justification? What are things that you would look for?
Sure. So it is expensive. Let's not beat around the bush. We never would recommend, take your entire facility, shut it down for 2 years, and let us rebuild the entire thing. That's just not a practical way to run the business. So what the challenge is for that plant manager or the controls engineer or the head of technology to think about, how do I lay my roadmap to get there? And how do I justify each of those individual steps? So if I were sitting in their shoes, I would be looking at, what's my 5-year to 10-year strategic plan to update my facility? And then let's lay out the logical steps. What is my expense? What's the short-term return? And then what's the long-term return? Many of the investments we make, Jen, quite frankly, are pay for themselves. They have a 1-year, 2-year, 3-year turnaround. So those are relatively easy. You can put in a CapEx requirement. You can talk to your board of directors or whomever your decision makers might be and show a payoff for that. Others may have a longer payoff period, but if you can weave them into the story of how, hey, this advancement connects to that advancement, and I'll just talk about data intelligence and AI for a moment. You may look down and say, this 30% of my plant is not networked. To network and automate that doesn't pay off in the short term, so I'm not going to do that. However, that creates a blind spot in your AI. How does your AI engine know all of the different aspects of your manufacturing process so it can recommend a better way to do it? It can't. So you've got to think, okay, I've got to work my way through connecting everything and getting the information because I want to leverage AI for all it's worth, and I can't do that right now. So back to your question, I would justify it in 2 forms. 1, short-term ROI, and then 2, how does that weave into my long-term plan of fully automated facilities that can leverage AI to improve my manufacturing processes?
Helpful. Yeah, we can throw them some softballs.
Right. Well, I think we went through all the questions I had kind of listed as discussion points. So I would like to end our episodes on a little bit more of a lighter note, and I have some fun questions. At least that's what I'm calling them.
That's not on my question sheet, but okay.
So here's the first one. If you could have coffee with any inventor or engineer, past or present, who would it be?
So I think there's so many. The 2 that jump off my page, and a lot of people mentioned Thomas Edison, but I wouldn't. That would be a fine one. Not that I have anything wrong with it, but I think I would pick Nikola Tesla, although I'd have to be very careful because he was a germaphobe and was rather eccentric, but he was so far beyond the pale. If you read an autobiography of his or hear stories about him, his thought process and the concepts he was considering were so beyond his time. It would just be fascinating to hear what else he was thinking of. I think he could probably do extremely well in modern society, given some of the concepts he came up with. And then completely on the other side, Ben Franklin. I would love to sit down with Ben Franklin. I don't know what he's really like, but I feel like he's a character and a half. And the exact opposite of a Nikola Tesla. I think he'd be, handshaking and hugging the entire time. And I think he'd be a hoot to chat with, and he had creative ideas all over the place. So that'd probably be my top 2.
That's great. Now, this is a fun question that I have asked a lot of our employees, and I always get fun answers with it. So I'm just going to make it a part of every episode. Is how would you describe your job to a 5-year-old?
How do I describe my job? I describe the company, but let me think about my job.
It can be both answers, I suppose, the company and your job.
Well, for the company, I simply say we control all the machines in a factory. That's our job, is to make sure that all those machines make the products the right way. So that's super simple for the 5-year-old to understand. But sometimes I talk about robots and how they're going to take over the world. That's fun too. But if I talk about my own job, I sometimes, I don't know if I tell a 5-year-old this, but I'll tell you how I view my job, and then I'll try to figure out how I say it to a 5-year-old. But my job is not actually to do the work of the business. We hire outstanding engineers to do that. My job is to help those engineers achieve their full potential. And that's by creating a great organization, creating some place where they want to go every day and they can thrive. So, whether that's the equivalent of a baseball coach or something like that, that's my job. It's not to figure out the next piece of automation. It's to create this great environment where people can solve those problems and help cure cancer because we helped automate that with our great team, or help create the next wave of data centers so that we can make AI come about faster. My job is to make all of that possible. How would I describe that to a 5-year-old? I have no idea. But lots of meetings, lots of calls, and lots of pushing around of digital paper.
Okay. And this one is also something I'm just going to ask everybody is, what topics would you like us to see us cover on future episodes of Beyond Tech?
Future episodes. So I think, we did a great job here talking about some generalities in the space, but I think we could do a whole session on AI and machine learning and machine intelligence, what's happening, where the next logical steps are. It's got all the buzz in the world, but I think there's a great question of, well, what's applicable to me? What can I go out and use today? I think that would be a great session. I think there are a number of executions that we're seeing in the field between autonomous robots and some advances in vision systems that would just be neat to hear about. I mean, one of the things that we get to see that not all our clients get to see is thousands of different facilities. So it's one of the things, if you're one of our clients, we bring that all to the table. But in this podcast, maybe we could show snippets of a best practice of AI, a best practice of a vision system, a really cool creative execution of autonomous robots, things that are at the cutting edge that allow people to start to do that planning process for their 5 and 10-year plan.
That's great. I will do them all.